You're listening to the LDS Sexologist, a podcast devoted to tackling the taboo and finding the connection between spirituality and sexuality. To submit your anonymous questions, click the link in my Instagram bio. Hello and welcome back to the LDS Sexologist. Today I am here for anyone that wants to know about this career path. In the past 12 days that I have consistently been posting on my Instagram, I have gotten no less than 10 people reaching out saying something along the lines of, "Hi, I'm also LDS, I'm also interested in sexology. Tell me about this career path, how did you get into it? What are some advice that you have for me? And how do I get into this?" So this episode is really for those amazing individuals that are also interested in this more niche field. And, it's not that niche. Yes, it is, but it's also way more, well known and liked and enjoyed by a lot of people than I think most realize. The field of human sexuality is one all-encompassing. It crosses over into so many different fields. It's multidisciplinary. And it is so interesting. So I just am so excited that there are a lot more people reaching out. But also, just really quick side comment. You guys, can we talk about how good God is? I have been doing this career for years now, and I did take a pretty significant pause for my master's degree because I was quite literally working 5 jobs in order to fund my master's degree. It was on paper, the biggest financial mistake I could have made, but I know for a fact that it wasn't because it was what God told me to do. So it took a ton of sacrifice to go and get my master's degree, and it took a lot of work in order to work full-time and then also be a full-time student. Anytime that I was not working a job, I was doing homework and I was doing research assignments, I was in class. It was a really hard year and a half. It was a ton of work. So it's just really amazing to see now that I'm home, and I've been home for less than a month, now that I'm back and I have finally just sat down and done this. This is my whole job, and I don't have any other jobs going on. I don't have any other schooling that I'm doing. I'm just able to do exactly what I love. It's incredible, and I feel like God has just been really confirming to me that it was the right choice to make all those sacrifices and to live all the way across the world in order to do this career. But don't worry, everyone. You do not have to live all the way across the world in order to get this career. God takes us on different paths. They have a different design for everyone. But let me tell you a little bit about sexology in general, and then some different paths that you can take, and maybe some helpful information for you when it comes to researching sexology, especially sexology programs. Okay, starting off, I'm going to recommend that you go and you watch my video, What is Sexology? Because that breaks down the main parts of it, the either biology, sociology, psychology, I know a lot of ologies, and then you have forensic sexology, which a lot of people don't know about, so I also talk about that one. That one's going to be looking at the effects of sexual crimes, and either the perpetrator side or the victim survivor side. So it really depends on what discipline you want to go into. The most common is going to be psychology, and that's normally what people associate sexology with. It makes sense. It sounds very similar. No one's ever actually heard of sexology. And people are like, oh, like a sex therapist. That's more well known. But I did not do that route. I did take quite a few classes and did a lot of work in the psychology side, but I am on the education portion. So I can't fully speak to that particular path because I did not take it, and I actively chose not to take it. Psychology, that route, however, is a really good one to take for quite a few different reasons. So number one, if you're wanting to work with people, obviously you get like direct contact with them and you work one-on-one with them or with couples, and that can be quite rewarding. You get a nice framework of how we as humans work, how communication works, and a lot of people are really interested in that, of like, how do we come to the ideas that we have, and how do those help us, how do those hurt us? Psychology is really going to be looking at that side of things, of, the sexual scripts that we have written and how we use those for our benefit and to bless our lives, but then also how can they be a detriment, and the trauma that can sometimes be caused by purity culture or just certain ways that things are taught, and helping people come to a better understanding of themselves so that they can then change their behavior. And that is really a good path because a lot of times it's covered by insurance. So if you do that path, it is a lot of schooling because you need to do an undergrad and then you'll need to do a master's in, you can do it in sexology, or you could also do it in sex therapy specifically. And that's going to be bachelor's degree, master's degree, and then you have to do clinicals as well, and then take, I think it's a board, you need to be board certified. I know that for sure. It's a longer process to do that. But if that's the route that you like, if you really enjoy psychology classes and understanding how we think and how that affects every part of our lives, like, go for it. That's awesome. For me, I'm too much of a talker for that. That was never going to be for me. I mean, I do find it interesting, don't get me wrong, but I am much more interested in the how, not the why. The why obviously is important. We need that. And I love that people love to get deep into the why, and I say, you go talk to them, figure out why you are the way that you are. And then when you're ready to be like, okay, how do I change this? Or how does this work? That's when you come to me. I kind of like to explain it as if you are going up to bat, like baseball, right? The therapist, what they're going to do is they are going to, one, maybe you need help getting the courage to get up to bat. Maybe to like interact with your sexuality in some way. Like you feel like you've been either put on the bench or you're stuck at the bench or whatever it may be, or maybe you can't even show up to the field. I don't know, take the analogy whatever way you want. But basically your therapist is there to help encourage you to get up to bat. Okay, they're gonna tell you about the game as a whole and get you feeling more comfortable with that, who you are as a player, right? You get up to bat. What my job is I'm going to say, I want you to stand foot here. I want your hands here. I want your other hand here. Here's how you're going to swing it, okay? You're going to go back this far, and then you're going to swing with this much force. And then you're going to hit the ball, and then you're going to go to base one, and you're going to stop. Unless, and I'm explaining the rules of the game, like the mechanics of the game. So that way you know what you're doing. And then, of course, when you go and you try it, it's not going to always go according to plan. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, I'm a coach. I am there to say, like, oh, okay, let me tell you where your technique was off. And let me tell you the rules of the game, like why this is the way that you have to run. You have to run this direction rather than like counterclockwise. Like, let me tell you why. I could tell you the history of why that was a rule and how that works. That's me. That's what I'm doing. And then, let's say you swing and then you miss. And that is really devastating for you because it took so much courage for you to like get up and to like interact with your sexuality, and then you tried and then you like, it just like didn't go the way you thought. Like, then you go talk to your therapist about that, how you feel about that, how that affects you. That's not me. That's not my job. I think it's amazing. Like, you need both. By no means do I think you should be doing this without a coach or without, like, I don't know what in this version. I guess there's multiple coaches on baseball teams, right? Why do I choose sports analogies? I am not a sports person. I need to do gymnastics analogies because that's the only sport I know, like the back of my hand. Yeah, you know what? Note to self. I'm going to think of a gymnastics analogy. Well, anyways, so that is going to be like the psychology side, and that is covered by insurance most of the time in most states, in most countries, depending on where you are. So that's a really good route to take. But if you're like, if you're anything like me, and you're like, I don't really want to talk to people about their problems, and that's not to say that you don't care, because obviously I care. But again, I am more interested in you coming to me like ready to grab the bat. Like, I'm going to help you with logistics, baby. I am going to help you understand blood flow and our nerves and the nervous system and your arousal and what's going on in your brain when you orgasm, and like how all of this context matters, and education, and like when we know these things about our body, how we can work with that knowledge and we can do things to maximize pleasure. That's what you're coming to me for. And also to lessen pain as well. Because if you are dealing with pain, I'm going to help you understand why, like where that comes from, the different diagnoses, the criteria for it. I am not going to diagnose you. That's going to be a different path. That's going to be, either a gynecologist, even like a sexual health nurse, a couple other ones you could, you have andrologist or urologist as well, but that's going to be much more medical. Now, I lean much more medical than I do on the psychology side. So that's another big difference between the career path that I took and the one that I would say interests most people that message me. So really, first thing I would do is go watch, listen to this, and then go watch that YouTube video and figure out what side you're wanting. Do you find it really, really interesting, the sociology side? How gender and how we view gender influences the decisions that we make and the media that we produce and ingest and consume and the marketing? I mean, there's entire careers on that, right? There's so many different ways that you can go with this, because human sexuality is in all of these different fields because it is an innate part of being human. And it's our conflict with that in different cultures that causes a lot of issues, which is very fascinating as an area of study of how these cultures affect how we feel and then how we behave and how we interact with each other, the behaviors that it leads to, the types of behaviors in, like, if it leads to violence or if it leads more to problematic, like self-harming type of behaviors that aren't healthy for us. There's just so much to it. So I would first watch that video to determine what interests you the most, because what will probably happen is you'll watch that video and you'll be like, oh, all of it. And welcome to the field of sexology, because that is absolutely how it goes. It's all so fascinating. It's so incredible how it all interacts. But then I would look at you as a person. What are your strengths? What could you just talk about all day or listen to all day? Like, what is something that already in your life brings you a lot of joy? And for me, I genuinely was born an educator. Not everyone feels that about, their career path. I feel like some people, they can wear a lot of different types of hats, or they kind of have to figure it out along the way, and there's nothing that they feel this like strong pull towards. We're all different. So if that's the case for you, I'm so sorry you're not going to be able to relate to what I'm saying. And I can't fully talk to that type of experience, because from like first grade, I was dressing up a Halloween as a teacher. Like, I have always wanted to teach. It has been something that I have just always known about myself. I don't know, I always knew this was what I was like born to do. And that's looked different like throughout my life, but I love human connection. I find it incredibly rewarding to be this small hinge for someone. Like when you think of a door, right? I love, I think it was President Hinckley, maybe, that once said the doors of, oh gosh, I should really look up this quote before I just go off the cuff, but it was something about how, like, doors swing wide, but it takes like hinges to do it. Like it's a small thing that allows a door to like open really wide. And for me, being a teacher, I get to play that like hinge part, and not even all the hinges, just one, maybe even a screw in a hinge. Like I get to help someone understand themselves better. I can give them the encouragement and courage to go after something, and I can give them clarity that allows them to open a door. I find it so rewarding to be a part of someone's life in that way. I remember when I was a teenager and I was a gymnastics coach, and I taught the competition team, and being able to just encourage these girls, and just the moment that they do something over and over and over again, and as a coach, I'm trying to figure out what is a different way that I can explain this so they can understand what they're doing wrong, what's not going right, how they can fix it, how they can make things a little bit better, a little bit easier for themselves, because clearly this is on me. Like, what I'm saying is not clicking with them. And so being able to finally find that, the visual representation, or maybe the drill that like really helped them, and then to see them put that effort in and really apply what I have said, and then they are able to accomplish something that they couldn't before. Oh my gosh, there is no better feeling in the whole world than that for me personally. Like, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. When, one of my girls would finally be able to go on vault, and like she just did everything that I told her, and it finally, we've been at this for months and so many practices, and she got it. She got it. And the thing is that it was all her. And I just got to be that small little part. I just got to be the one that helped explain it and encourage until she got it. And that is who I am as a person. So yeah, education was always going to be what I was going to pick. I just love it so much. It makes me emotional every single time I teach. I mean, I don't usually show it because that would be a little unprofessional. But it really, after I'm done explaining like arousal to someone, and I see this couple who has dealt with pain and problems for like years, just by a simple lesson on arousal and blood flow, they completely change their entire like thinking about how they're going to react or interact physically because of what they know now. And I got to be the one that provided that information. Like, I feel like I'm just carrying around these golden nuggets, and I'm like, here, for you, just please take it, go, spend it, it's super valuable, and it's amazing. And if I could do it for free all day, every day, I would. Like, I just love handing out these golden little nuggets, and I'm like, go, spend it, enjoy. Oh, it lights up my soul. So anyways, okay, I'm getting off track. Okay, going back to the question, which is how to get into this career. So for me, I'll tell you about my personal journey, because this hopefully might help. So for me, when I was looking at sex education, because that's what my undergrad ended up being in, was sex education, I was thinking, okay, what are the different parts of education that are really, really taboo? Like, what would really benefit people to learn about? And where are people struggling? Those were kind of the questions that I was asking. And especially in my undergrad, as I was doing my research, I did my thesis on vaginismus, which actually is not the technical term. It's GPPD, genital pelvic pain penetration disorder, but previously known as vaginismus. So most people are familiar with that. Basically, just pain during penetration. Well, it's a little bit more than that, but we'll keep it basic. This is the problem with being an educator, is I'm like, well, actually, let me go on a 12-minute tangent about that to help you really understand. And sometimes I just need to stop and just give the bare minimum information, but that's also never been me. I've always been a chronic over-explainer. So, anyways, going back to the pain, I realized this was this really big issue that was going on within not only LDS community. I mean, I was seeing it within my own community, but in doing research, how prevalent pain is within religious communities and the detriment to relationships, to health. It's just really, really difficult if something that you've been told your entire life is like, you know, the most precious and sacred and greatest thing ever, and so much so that you should never even talk about it ever until you get to the marriage, like, moment, until that rings on your finger, and then it's gonna be the best thing of your life, even though we never talked about it like that before. It's very conflicting messaging. And then they get married, and they have all of this expectation, and hopefully they are excited. I mean, I meet a lot that are very nervous and have a lot of anxiety about that, and so I help them with that. But in the case of someone being really excited and so ready, and then to have their honeymoon be this genuinely traumatic experience because it is so painful, like unbelievably painful. And then, of course, the whole time she's thinking, well, everyone told me it was going to hurt. But like, oh my gosh, they didn't tell me how bad it was going to hurt, this bad. And then they push through the pain because that's what they think that they have to do or that they should do, and that they only have a definition of sex being penetration. And so then what ends up happening is the nervous system now thinks of this experience as one to fear. This is a traumatic experience because it causes you physical pain, and that pain's very real. Like, it is a real tightening of the lower pelvic floor muscles that is unintentional, and there's no amount of like, just relax, that's gonna solve that. Like, you need a pelvic floor therapist, you need a sex educator, and you need a sex therapist. Like, you need stretches, you need dilators, you need to have a different way and mindset that you think about sex and pleasure. And that doesn't just happen because now you have a ring on your finger and like permission. That's not how that works. So that was what started interesting me. I started really honing in on that particular side of human sexuality, of the dysfunctional side, of when you're told that things are going to be one way and then the reality, and how devastating that is. Like, to me, I just saw that and was like, why is no one talking about this? Like, and when I was the one that started to, and I started doing this research, and I started, talking to more women and holding more like sex ed, just like education stuff at my apartment in Provo and in Orem, then all of a sudden I realized, wow, there is a need here, and this is a need I can fill. I saw once where someone, it was probably on TikTok, I'm going to be honest, or Instagram Reels or something, where they said that when you start saying the sentence, why is no one talking about this? That's when you've clued into like where you should be, because that's where you're needed. Because when you look at something and you say, why is no one talking about this? This matters. This is a problem. This is something that's hurting people. When you start having this compassion like run through you and genuine concern for the lack of concern that everyone else seems to be having around you surrounding this topic, when you're like,
hello? Why does no one seem to care about this? Like, this is alarming. And that is when I think you found it. Like, when you are looking at something and you're like, why is no one caring about the different packaging and like how things are marketed? And like, maybe you're more on the sociology side, or like, why is no one talking about the sexual trauma that purity culture is creating and like the sexual scripts that it's creating in people? Okay, maybe you want to be on the psychology side. Or why is no one talking about, the rehabilitation of these perpetrators, and, why are we just like completely villainizing them? Maybe you want to be on the forensic side and working with perpetrators. Like, someone who's genuinely feeling that way, because most of the time when we're talking about perpetrators especially, you've got a lot of people that do not feel that way. They don't feel like there should be any sort of redemption, there should be any sort of rehabilitation, any sort of anything, right? So if you have someone that genuinely says, like, well, what about them? Then that's an amazing person that should absolutely be in that field. And in the same way that with victim survivors, you have someone that's saying, well, why are the laws made this way to like just protect perpetrators but not the victim survivors? And what about their health? And what about what happens to them? And how to make these processes better? Why does no one care about this? There are people that care about it, and you're one of them. And you should find other people in that field. Those are the types of areas that you should be leading into, because to me, I feel like that's where we find that calling. And I think we can have so many callings. That's the thing. It's not limited. But if you are feeling a pull towards the field of sexology at all, one, hi, welcome to the club. So happy to have you here. It's the best. But two, this is a more unique place to be pulled towards. And I think it does really take special people to do this. Like, it takes people that think differently and that have kind of always felt like they felt differently about everything. Like, the ones that not everything sat right with them and they question a lot of things, and they also are a little bit more outspoken or pensive about, just the common narratives that everyone just seems to accept. And then they look at it and they go like, but why? Like, that doesn't actually make sense. That is who I tend to find interested in the field of sexology, and like within this field are the people that like to push back, that like to understand that, you know what, I will, go in the closet and look at that. Like, this isn't some dark, scary space to me. I know it seems terrifying that it's some either attic or basement to you, but I don't understand why it's in a different room. I don't understand. And it's that seeking to understand that you start to find like, well, wait, why is no one talking about this part of it? Why is no one talking about the effects of menopause on women? And why is no one talking about sex after giving birth or pregnancy or pelvic floor therapy? Like, why does no one care? People care. People care, and you've just found that you care as well, and that's amazing. So I wouldn't put too much pressure on you that you have to like pick one route, because at least in my experience and in the experience of many sexologists that I have been around, worked with, gone to school with, you kind of find it in your, just as part of your journey. You start off, I want to go into everything and I don't even know. And then you hone into, well, what naturally interests you as a person? Just your regular hobbies, your regular things that you gravitate towards. And then is there human sexuality there in that space? Because the answer is probably yes. You could have someone, I had a sexologist who loved HR, okay? Like, that was her whole world, was human resources. And she really wanted to get into sexology because that was also something that just like really fascinated her. So then, of course, she was like, well, the workplace sexual harassment trainings suck. for the most part. And why is that? And so that's why she pursued like an additional certificate in sexology, was because she wanted to create better curriculum within her own field that really addressed sexual harassment. And that's amazing. Like, that, I can't say interests me as much. I'm not really going, why is no one talking about how bad the sexual harassment training are, and that we're just checking a box, but no one's actually really caring about the laws. I can't say that, yeah, I don't care that much about that, but I'm so glad that you do. We aren't talking about it enough, and so I'm glad that you are. There's also, like, I had a really wonderful person in one of my classes during my master's, and she was a sexual health nurse. She'd been a nurse for decades. I mean, just a lot of people in the field of sexology tend to be a little bit older. They tend to be already in a field, and then they see this deficit, this hole that needs to be filled with additional training specifically around human sexuality. So for her, she worked with spinal cord injury patients, and she saw that, they're getting rehab to relearn how to walk, how to eat, how to, do all of these basic functions once they're paralyzed, but no one's talking about their sexual functioning. And that is something that they really need to, one, talk about. Like, this doesn't just go away because they were in an accident. Like, they still have wants and desires and needs and functioning. And also, like, if they have a partner, like, this doesn't just go away. They aren't just, like, not allowed to date now because they're in a wheelchair. Like, no, human sexuality is for everyone. Or there was also another person in my degree who he worked with special needs children and, like, teenagers at different schools, especially with problematic sexual behaviors, where they're masturbating in class, or they're, touching their classmates, and a lot of times they do have special needs. But again, if you just say, like, no, and you scream at them and villainize them, and you don't help them to understand and how to channel that behavior, or if you pretend that just because they have an intellectual disability or a physical disability that they somehow aren't sexual, like because they have Down syndrome, that they just, like, don't have sexuality, well, that's not true. Just because they're non-verbally autistic, like, does not mean that their body isn't also functioning in the same way that a normal 15-year-old boy would. And so by not talking about these things, by treating them as other, as if this doesn't apply to them, then yes, we very easily set them up for problematic sexual behaviors, because we don't teach them how to healthily deal with this and channel it, and when it's appropriate, where they can, masturbate, or what is okay, what's not okay. And there are ways to deliver that to any type of an intellectually disabled person or someone with a physical disability. And this is important. And so you have people that they've worked in this field of, autism studies, or special needs nurse, or something like that. And then they see, wow, this is actually really important, and, like, no one's really talking about this. And so then they find themselves into the field of sexology and being like, how can I become a greater resource? I need greater knowledge myself first before I can go and help and, be able to talk about this. And then naturally, anyone in the field of sexology just automatically becomes an educator by default because so many people don't know about this field. But all of this to say that you'll find where you are most needed, and what most interests you, and what keeps you up at night and keeps your brain active and thinking, and what starts to just really take over your thoughts of, I want to help. I feel like I have something to say in this particular space. So, start off with everything if that's what interests you, and then start to hone in. But you do have to make a choice pretty quickly. If you're going to do, like, a master's or higher education, you need to choose either the more science side, or you're going to choose more the humanities side. So this is what I mean. when I was looking up programs for a master's, which, by the way, I was like, no, thanks, I'm good. I had an additional year and a half, almost 2 years of school. That's a whole other story. I studied abroad a lot. I had done research in Switzerland. I was like, no, I am good. I am ready to start my career. And I had started it, and I was working with a sex therapy clinic. I was working at a sex store, and I was also working for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints all at the same time. I know, she's a versatile woman. She's a Jill of all trades. She also likes to make money and has rent to pay. So anyways, I was doing this and I was like, this is all that I've ever dreamed of. Like, this is what I want to do. I was born to do this, and doing it, it made me so happy. But then I really felt the prompting that I should go and get more. I needed more education in order to really help at the level at which I desire to help. So when I started looking at programs, most of them are in humanities. Now, you are going to be usually labeled as gender studies if you're going the humanities route. It's not usually going to be labeled as sexology. That is quite rare to see something labeled as a sexology degree. A lot of times it falls under the umbrella of gender studies or even sex therapy if you're doing that side, of course. I think I even saw there was like media and human sexuality. There was a program in Ireland that I was gonna do. So you also have to decide if you're going to do this, with an international perspective, or if you're gonna stay within the US, because you are gonna get very different, similar but different, types of learning depending on where you go. For example, with sex therapy, it's very Western, with the techniques and the theories that you learn, the explicit model, the ship model. But if you go more to Europe, you're going to get like sexocorporal, which that's going to be completely different. And maybe that's something that really interests you. And if you want to know about sexocorporal therapy, sex therapy specifically, I do have an entire episode with a sexocorporal therapist. So go check that out. Her name's Carmen Kerr. She is incredible and she's from Switzerland. So you have to decide like what type of audience you want, or what interests you. For me, I have always been interested in the differences between humans, and I don't know, like, it doesn't bother me at all that someone can see something completely different than me. I never understood debates between people, or like arguments where they're trying to really convince the other side of how they view and that they're correct. Like in any sort of argument or something, that just never made sense to me. That always had me in my head being like, why do you care? Like, that's kind of interesting that they just think so differently. And why do you feel this need to convince them that you're correct, that your way of thinking, that your way of living is correct? I've just never felt that myself. I've been more interested in the difference and been more curious about it and seeing the beauty in the difference. And I think it comes just personality-wise from me. I'm quite confident in myself, and so I don't really need someone to like reassure me that what I'm doing is like what I should be doing, or like the way that I live my faith is like correct. Or, if someone were to come along and completely disagree with my faith or my religion or the way that my career, whatever, I'm good. Like, you can absolutely disagree. Like, it doesn't really bother me that much. Like, it sucks that you can't understand, but it won't change me. And again, I get more interested in like, okay, then what is it that you think? What makes you think that way? that's so interesting, the type of education that you've had, how that has led to the thoughts that you have, and then, of course, your thoughts lead to behavior. And it makes sense that I studied in my undergrad behavioral analytics. So what triggers people to behave in the way that they do, not just what the behavior is. Again, I care far less about the behavior itself, and I care more about like the process of getting there. Like if you can change this one element, the antecedent is what it's called, like the trigger before the behavior, it can absolutely eliminate the behavior completely. Or if you're actually doing the behavior because you like the reward that comes from it, then if you change the reward system, then it like changes everything. If you change the way that you set goals, then it will just automatically change the behavior itself. Whereas I think psychologists, they look more at the behavior and what it's, what does this mean? Why do you do it? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm much more of like, can we like change the mechanics of this, of the equation to like switch things up? So just human behavior in general fascinates me. And the part that education plays in how that informs your behavior is just what gets my mind tingling. So, where was I going with all of this? See, this is my problem. I just get so passionate about all of it. Hold on. Pause. Right. Back at it. We're talking about global perspective. So for me, because I'm interested in behavior and the differences and how that changes based on what education you have, how you grew up, this made me want to seek out a broader perspective, because I feel like for me, I need to step back. I've got to take in the whole picture so that I can hone in on this one spot to help you here. But I don't mind having a lot of variation and a lot of color and like to the picture. I really enjoy that. I enjoy the differences that come from interacting with people from different faiths, from different backgrounds. I just really love that. And I also felt that it was particularly important when it comes to being a Latter-day Saint, as someone who believes in this worldwide church, the majority of which is outside of the US, by the way. I don't know if anyone knew that stats-wise. I worked for the church, so I know these things. But yeah, it actually turns out more than 50%. The majority is outside of the US. So knowing that everything isn't just Utah, that Utah is its own special little creation that has its incredible aspects to it, and then also its problematic side, of course, as with any culture. And growing up in Utah, I am like, okay, this I know. This I am very familiar with. This is just my everyday. So then to me, I was like, but if I want to help not just people in Utah, but if I want to help church members, then I need to understand how the church functions in other parts of the world, how it works in China, and how it works in the Virgin Islands, in the Caribbean. I want to know how it works in Europe, in Switzerland, in the end of the earth, Perth, Australia, and meeting other people in those places from all different backgrounds, all different religions. To me, that has only helped me with my education because, again, I don't need to prove that I'm right. I think that there's a lot of truth in a lot of places, and I'm a seeker of truth, and I'm a seeker of God. God isn't just in Lehigh, Utah, or in Utah County. They are everywhere, and this light and the knowledge and wisdom is in a lot of places. And yes, I believe in the fullness of the gospel, and I'm so grateful for it. But to just completely ignore that there are other ways that the gospel is lived and loved in other places, I think is not helpful to us as people. But again, this is just me. So when it comes to human sexuality, I wanted that global perspective because I didn't just want to cater to a Utah Mormon audience. I wanted to cater to people all the way across the world that and understand like the struggles that they go through with the culture that they have, and then how that plays into the feelings that they have about sexuality, and then how the church and how we teach about sexuality, how those can kind of like muddle together. That was what my goal was, is I want to figure that out, and how can I have a more broad perspective that just really understands sexuality as a whole, as a global thing that humans all over the universe like have, versus just how it affects Mormons in Utah. So this thinking, these desires that I had, this is what led me to seek programs everywhere and anywhere around the world. So when I was researching gender studies, sexuality, human sexuality, sex therapy programs, like I was researching all of them, and I didn't have a limit set on where I was going to do that. But that's not going to work for everybody, especially if you're someone that's, married with kids, or you have a career already and you're wanting to just like seek greater sexology certification. Like, obviously that's not going to work. I am quite in a privileged position being single, where I can get up and leave and move across the world and do this. And I think that that's why I did it, is because I looked at my life and I thought, there are so many other people that don't have this privilege, but yet it's been given to me. And I feel this pull and I feel this desire, and I am in a position, God has created this entire open position for me to do this. So yes, it was ultimately up to me, but I knew that all of these things had worked together to give me this opportunity, that in any other time of my life, or if I was married with kids, like I wouldn't have been able to do this. And so the person who's married with kids, then they're going to be given a different opportunity that is made for them. But I had this incredible pull to not study outside of the US, not just once, but 4 times. And that really shaped my education. It shaped who I am now. A decade later, having lived all over the world, it changes you as a person. The friends that I have and the view that I have of human sexuality is definitely going to be quite different than even someone who takes human sexuality courses at BYU. Like, I mean, it doesn't mean that it's better in any way, but I have my own unique flavor of sexology because of the experiences that God needed me to have in order to speak in the way that I do about this topic. Because it's going to resonate with people that other people can't. That I think that that's true about all of us. So for you have to decide if it's going to be something that you want a global perspective on, and you also need to consider your personality. You need to remember that if you're gonna do global, that you're gonna get some really different things, meaning stuff that does not align with not just your religious values, but your Western thinking if you are from America. Okay, if you're gonna go get an education in sexology and you say, yes, I want this worldwide perspective, then you need to actually understand that a worldwide perspective is gonna look different than your world. So you need to have a personality that I think is non-combative, that's non-argumentative, that you can stand on your own 2 feet and not be wavered in your beliefs and what you think, but you can, again, see value in a lot of different ways that others look at sexuality, speak about it, that you can hold your own in those rooms. Because if not, then it might, in some aspects, feel like a personal attack, even though it's not. Like, it's definitely not. But it will rub up against everything that you've known, especially from a Western LDS perspective. But the beauty is, it's not some outlandish things that you're going to be taught, because the beauty to this entire field is God made us like this. Like, sexuality is from God. And the more that I have studied it, and the more that I've heard the entire perspective, right? Like, I have heard things that are very against my values. I've heard things and cultures that I'm like, oh, okay, that's not quite how I agree with. But ultimately, the research and what we know about human sexuality, about connection, all of that is absolutely in line with what we teach about ourselves, about our worth, that our bodies are a precious, incredible gift, and we have ownership of that they are ours. We as Latter-day Saints absolutely believe that. We believe in connection with other people, building healthy relationships, building community, and not using your sexuality as this way to, boost your own ego or gain power, but rather it is a power that you possess and that you are a steward over. And of course, I'm using different verbiage than is used in these classes, but that is the beauty of human sexuality, is that you can hear all of these different things in the ways that it's taught, and then with the Spirit you can say, oh, okay, this is how in my world, in my view, this resonates with this type of verbiage, but it's actually all here, and it is taught everywhere, and it's not some outlandish, crazy thing that, like, they just have completely different perspectives. Like, no, they just have different perspectives, different verbiage, and sometimes different values. But the way in which our sexuality can bless our lives and is such a gift to us, that is international, that is across the board. And having spirituality be a part of it, to me, it just makes it so much more beautiful, so much more important in my life. Not that it's overinflated, that it's like this end-all be-all thing, but rather it's a beautiful, incredible part of myself. And so therefore it's important that I know about it and that I am able to use my agency around it and with it, and it empowers me in a lot of ways the more that I have learned about human sexuality. So when you're considering a career in this, you need to be okay with people disagreeing with how you interpret the teachings. Data don't lie, and data always backs up what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints teaches about marriage, about fidelity, about all of that, right? Like, it's completely backed up by data that the healthiest way for a human to live is to, be monogamous with one partner that they trust completely and, have marriage and blah, 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 blah. So you don't got to worry about any of that, because the data be backing that up 10 times out of 10. But culturally, in this space, it's going to be taught in a lot of different ways. And you just have to be willing to listen and come into it curiously, of like, oh, that is something completely different than how I view things, and so it really will be an incredible opportunity for you to take an assessment of how you really feel about sexuality and about sex in general, about human connection. And I would say just be prepared to be kind of stopped in your tracks and be like, whoa, what is it that I think about this? Why do I feel this way? So just know that in this field, there is a lot to it. But if you're interested in it, you've got to trust in that is for a reason. So there's some different diplomas that you can get, certifications. Again, it really depends on what side you want to do. If you want to go the humanities side, then that's going to be more gender studies And the programs are going to look like that. They're going to have classes that talk about like feminism and queer theory and I don't know what else, like film, movies, societal narratives and things. And that stuff is really valuable, honestly. Or you do the psychology side if you're like, you know what, I really don't feel inclined to study all of the sociology side, like I'm going to go more with human behavior. So then you're going to get a mix in your classes or in your certification around different theories of human behavior and like human thinking and how we interact with the world around us, how to talk to people. Like that's going to be more that side of it. It's not just going to be what my degree was, because mine was sexology, meaning it was like my class names was like foundations of sexology. So I was learning about the history of this field itself, the different researchers and their decades of research and what we know about human sexuality because of them. I took a class called Culture and Contemporary Sexology, so going through the different ways in which the world has like viewed sex and talking about genitals, pornography, monogamy, polyamory, the different types of sex that people have, coitus, oral, I mean, all sorts of stuff like that, right? Like I was looking at the study of this field itself and the, again, mechanics of sex and sexuality. And then attitudes and values, that one, across the board, if you're going to do a certification, you typically have to take what's called a SARS class, which stands for Sexual Attitude Reassessment. Now, this is what panics a lot of people, and it panicked me when I was reading about it. And just know, different programs teach this slightly differently. So ASECT, the American Association of Sexuality Educators and Certified Therapists, they have they accept different SARS classes, but I know that they promote one in particular. I was just having a conversation like a couple weeks ago with an incredible woman on Instagram. Shout out, I think it's Shaking in the Sheets is her Instagram name. Her real name's Natalie Hamblin, and I'm obsessed with her and love her. Anyways, we were talking about these different SARS classes, and she was considering taking one, and she was saying that she had someone recently that like took one, and there was like a scene in it that depicted like a temple, like a LDS temple, and some sort of like really sexual scene there, and it was like really confronting and really like disturbing and upsetting. And I was like, I did not have that. That was not what mine was. So there are different SARS. So the one that I took, mine was a week long, and it was 8 hours a day to get all of the credits, because again, mine was done as like a master's. I think there are like 1-day programs that are online, but mine was called Attitudes and Values, and basically what it is it's exposure therapy. The idea behind it is they want you to be able to assess what your personal attitudes and values towards the material are, like in a safe setting, you know, where you're being confronted with it. So that way, if someone were to come along as like a client, you're not being exposed to this for the first time. Like if they were to reveal something to you that you're like, whoa, that is really against my values, like that you would know how to handle it, or know like this is actually a limit that I have and I'm not the best person for you to talk to about this, or maybe you just be able to be professional about it, really is what it's about. But it allows you to take a personal assessment of your own sexual script and what you view sexuality to be. And so I will give you like a breakdown of what this is. So how mine went was we first had to do a lot of research about the SARS itself. So I was reading like papers and stuff about the making of this program and like what it entails, and that made me so nervous. Like, I was panicked because basically he was telling me that this was going to be like just tons of pornography. Like, I literally was just like, oh my gosh, they're going to have me watch just hours and hours and hours of pornography for like exposure therapy. I was like, that's not cool. Like, I don't want to do that. I'm a religious woman. Like, that's, I mean, I don't feel comfortable doing that. So anyways, I read all this stuff and I was so nervous about it. And I actually went to my bishop and I was telling my bishop about this. I was like, look, I have this class next week. It's a week long, 8 hours a day. I've done all this research for it because it was mandatory before we took the class, to like know what we were getting into. And I was like, I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to be sitting in a class watching pornography and like feel aroused with like 30 people around me. Like, that to me, it sounds like my worst nightmare. Like, no, thank you. You know, obviously in the field of sexology, naked bodies and genitals and things like that, they are quite normal. You definitely talk about them, you see them, you discuss them. So the human body in general, like, it doesn't bother me. And I'm on the more medical side of things as well. So that wasn't my issue. My issue was, well, I don't want to be in this classroom like watching pornography in that way. You know, I was just like really nervous about it. So my bishop, shout out, he was amazing. I was just like, I don't understand, like, how I'm supposed to sit there. You know, this is really rubbing up against my personal attitudes and values. And my bishop gave me such a great blessing. And he told me something that was so inspired, where he was like, Nikki, you have told me your story and, you know, what got you to fly all the way here and like do this program. And, you know, your heavenly parents know that this is the curriculum. So they would not have told you to do this program if this was somehow going to be completely against what, you know, your values are. Like, you know, he gave me a blessing that I would just be able to learn and, you know, have an enjoyable time in the class, be able to take away what I needed to, and that I wouldn't be aroused. That was like my big thing. I was like, that just sounds terrible to me. Like, ugh, no thank you. That does not sound comfortable at all to be like in a room of 30 people. Like, no. So anyways, I had this blessing and I felt so much peace about it. I was like, you know what? This is being taught for a reason, you know, and I'm sure my anxiety and, you know, the sexual scripts that we have around pornography itself, which I have entire lessons on that, because sexual imagery itself it's not evil or like, but you know, I have chosen to not view that type of material for myself. So, you know, the fact that I felt like I was being forced to for the sake of education, I was like, I don't know about this. Well, anyways, I went to the class. Let me reassure all of you, for anyone else that may read about this and be like, oh, I don't know, this doesn't sound right. It was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal class. Basically how it went was we watched a 90-minute video, and no, they did not just like look up Pornhub. Like, that's not what this was. This video that I watched was made in like the 70s. The moment it turned on, I was like, oh, I freaked out for nothing. Like, this is so old. And it was a split screen. So on each side of the screen, it would have different types of sex. So it was 90 minutes, and so, you know, you would have on one side of the screen like a heterosexual couple having sex, and then on the other side of the screen, like, it'd be split, right? And the other side would be like a homosexual couple having sex. And it would do that for about like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then it would switch and it'd be like a woman masturbating and a man masturbating. And I know that this can sound very like alarming to a lot of members, and it can be like, ah, to a lot of people. I get it. But again, when I was watching it, because you're watching it with this intent, the reason that they do the split screen especially is they want you to kind of be assessing like what you're okay and comfortable with viewing, what you don't like viewing, how you feel about the material. And I was able to really sit there. I do largely think it was because of this blessing as well. I was able to sit there as a professional in this field and really look at it as like, what is this teaching about human connection, about just our bodies in general. And, I learned a lot from just being there and from the peace that I felt in like watching this. I know that sounds bizarre. I know. But stick with me here. Like, I was watching this and I was able to really firmly assess like how I felt about certain things and be able to like have a lot of reassurance with that the reason that I may not like this particular material or something, like I understand why I don't like it or why I'm not drawn to it, that's not really where I want my career to go. I don't really want to focus on this part of sexology or, it was very informative. And yes, it was exposure therapy. Like, I got exposed to a lot of things all at once, which I hate to say it, it was helpful. It was helpful because in this field, you do get exposed to a lot of different things in like what people want help with and need help with and the exposures that they tell you. So I do actually understand why this is part of the degree of sexology, because I do see where they're coming from academically, that yeah, there is this level of exposure that you need to have in order to not have like your own personal like moment about it in the face of someone who's like genuinely needing your help. So being able to have that again in this like private space, it was actually quite beneficial. And I thought, oh, okay, you know what? Culturally, if I were to just say this to like anybody, someone who's not interested in the field of sexology at all, they would be like, no, that's a problem and that's disgusting or that's whatever. They would put a judgment on it, right? But having gone through it myself and doing the entire SARS program, I was like, you know what? I can see the benefit here. And then I can also make decisions being like that I don't necessarily think that we have to be like exposed to every single thing in order to like be a good professional, but in this case I do see where they're coming from, and there was a lot of good conversation that comes from it. So you don't just like watch this and like, okay, then that's it. No. You watch this and then you split into like small groups. You discuss like the different things that you saw, how you felt about it. We get in big groups. We discuss our, again, attitudes, our values around it. And then we we had explicit pictures that you then had to verbalize and describe to someone else who wasn't looking at the image. Again, to familiarize yourself and normalize in a really big way being able to use proper terminology for anatomy. And that's helpful. That is a skill that you need to have. If you're going to talk to people about sex for a living and about sexuality, like, you need to be able to say penis, vulva, vagina, cervix, breasts. Like, you need to be able to say those things without flinching. You need to be able to have someone talk to you about masturbation and not like immediately have a reaction to that because you're not going to really be able to do that great in this field if every single time that you run into something you're like, you're panicked about it, because they need you to be calm. They need you to be the level-headed one. They need you to be the one that can think about this, because it is so taboo and stressful for a lot of people. So other things that we did, we watched, that entire week, so we had like intersex, transgender, STIs and HIV, and HSV as well, so like genital herpes. We had speakers come in who have HIV and genital herpes, and they told about their experiences. bloodborne illnesses. So there was a lot that I was able to learn just in that 1 week, and I do see a real benefit to the program, but just know if you're going to do something in sexology specifically, most of the time you are going to have to take some sort of SAR class, because all the research that I did read beforehand that like made me panic, it really does show that it has like really good results in creating more empathetic, understanding clinicians, but also making it where you can think more logically and clearly about a very touchy sometimes subject, something that it has a lot of feelings involved, and this kind of helps you to separate that a little bit in a positive way, I believe. But again, I heard most recently that the ASECT program, the one that they promote, that they apparently in their SARS video, that it was different than the one that I saw, because they told me that the SARS video that I watched is like the SARS video, that it's been around since the 70s, and it was created for this class. Like, by the way, I have no idea if I'm being correct with the 70s thing. I know someone out there who's like a historian is like, there wasn't even TV in the 70s or something. I don't know. Okay, whatever. It was old. It was old. That's all I know. And yeah, it wasn't anything aggressive. It was just human sexuality. Like it wasn't any, because the difference between like pornography, I have a hard time labeling what I watched as pornography, because pornography, I have an entire other podcast about this, the difference of it, but the main objective of that is going to be for arousal, and it's oftentimes depicting violence against women. It's also not real, it's very curated, whereas like what the SARS is, it's not that. It's not some scene, it's just like people having sex, like real people, and you know there's music over it in some parts, or sometimes there was like voiceovers, but it was just like normal human beings. Nothing was really curated. It was just sex. Like, and I know that sounds quite like abrupt and I don't know, cavalier when I say it like that, but like that's the truth. Like it wasn't salacious in any way. So yeah, I found it to be quite beneficial, but I also didn't have whatever that temple scene was that apparently is in another SARS video. Yeah, that I would have struggled with a lot more for sure. But luckily in mine, there was no depiction of like anyone religious that I can remember. So just know if you're going to go down this route, you're probably going to have some sort of certification or something that will involve a SARS class. So that's why I wanted to bring it up before you panic, because I was panicked. I was like, what have I done? And I now that I've done it, I think someone who were to say that like it's completely unnecessary, I don't know if I would agree with them, to be honest. I actually I see a lot of benefit from it. Yeah. So, you know, we can differ in opinion on that, me and others in the field, but from my experience, and again, for the global perspective, I mean, I was getting this degree in Australia, so the global perspective and hearing from my classmates and their perspectives were really, really interesting, because they differed quite significantly from my experience watching the film, like the things that they pointed out or that resonated with them, or that like didn't resonate with them or made them uncomfortable. Like it was interesting to hear people who live very different lives than myself and view sexuality quite through a different lens than me, to hear their take on it. I feel like that was additionally helpful to me as a professional in this field, to be like, oh, okay, you know, I did not see it like that. We did not think the same thing. We were watching the same thing, but we interpreted that completely differently. And I feel like for me, that was helpful to be able to have that in that class, to discuss it. And so it's typically done as a class or as a certification. Other things to know is you have something called the Kinsey Institute. So if you're still in your bachelor's, the Kinsey Institute, it's in Indiana, I believe, or Illinois, something with an I. I don't remember. But it's so upsetting to me that they don't offer a master's program because they have an entire institute, and it's from one of the really famous sexologists whose last name is, shockingly, Kinsey. And anyways, the Kinsey Institute studies human sexuality, sexology, does research, and they've produced some really, really cool stuff, and their research is awesome. So I love reading about the things that they produce. And anyways, I know that they have some certifications that you can get. I don't know if they're fully online, unless you want to move to Indiana and or Illinois, wherever it is. But there are a lot of online options for certifications. So there's quite a few that are just a year long. You can go for a full master's if you want. Mine was a 1.5 year program. There are 2 years, but again, most of the masters, I did a lot of research on the different master's programs, the different certifications globally, and overall, a lot of them were they were 2 years, or they were just a 1 year cert thing. They weren't the full masters, or they were in the humanities side, whereas I was interested in the sexual dysfunction, so I really wanted the science side of things. Like, I took a human reproduction class, was a part of my program, and that medical side of things, having speakers come in that are andrologists, urologists, pelvic floor therapists, like that was what I was going for. So if that is the side that like super, super interests you, then maybe like pelvic floor therapy, maybe not even sexology. Maybe if you just want to work with the human body and the muscles around sex, then pelvic floor therapy might be a better route for you. But again, that's going to be a lot more schooling. So you kind of have to pick and choose what you want to do. But there's a lot of just one-off programs that you can do, or like certifications. There's a ton of sexologists out there that they have their own programs that you can go on and, pay for their program. So I would, if you are like, you know what, I don't care to have an official certification or an official degree, I just want to learn, then maybe going the other route of searching up sexologists and taking their own courses and just like learning from them, that might actually be a little bit better for you. It depends on your state for sex education, whether or not you need to have any sort of certification. In Utah, you don't. So like anyone can call themselves a sex educator if they wanted to, which problematic, but okay. So certain states do require some actual schooling and paperwork that says like, yes, I've taken courses in this, and then others, they don't at all. So some people, they call themselves like a human sexuality coach or a sexuality intimacy coach, or I've seen all sorts of variations of that. And a lot of times those people don't actually have degrees. They just have their own learnings and then they go off and teach, which I really don't see a ton wrong with that, because if it resonates and it depends on what side they're doing. There's a lot of options. So for you, you just kind of have to figure out what is going to be best, what route you want to take, if you want to pay the money to get the certification. And I will say, if you want to go academic route, the reason that I decided to get my master's was because I work with sex therapists, and in order to gain a lot more credibility in the sex therapy world, I needed to have something. I needed to have a higher education degree in order for them to have that trust to refer their clients to me. That's just kind of how that works with the clientele that I work with. But if you're not working with that type of clientele, if you're just, someone on Instagram and you create a community of people and you just want this to be an open conversation, then you don't necessarily need to have like a ton of credentials for it. I definitely would encourage you to seek out more learning and understanding of basic human development, what's normal for our bodies to be doing and desire at all different ages and stages, abnormal sexual behaviors, understanding culture around like pornography and masturbation, especially if you're going to be in the LDS space, really understanding masturbation specifically. That one's going to be, you need to understand the cultural nuances that has created the society that is terrified of masturbation and views it as a sin when that's doctrinally incorrect, and you need to be able to learn about that. I do have my history of masturbation and Christianity and LDS history coming out soon, so that will be really helpful to you. But yeah, there's a lot of resources out there, and I'm creating a resource page as well that can kind of help you to like launch off of some different LDS specific people and then non-LDS specific. Like one of the best books I ever read was For Goodness Sex by starts with a V, Venaccio. I don't know, some sort of like Italian sounding last name. Anyways, he's a sexuality educator for teenagers at a not a Puritan high school, a Quaker. I think it was a Quaker high school. His book is phenomenal. Absolutely fantastic. Like, that book, so good. I loved the way he explains things, and especially him explaining it to teenagers. It's like, oh my gosh, this is incredible because I can just take this and tweak it a little bit and teach it to adults. Like, this is brilliant. So, For Goodness Sex, highly recommend that book. I also have a ton of other books that I recommend. I'm a reader. So, something basic that, watching Principles of Pleasure on Netflix, Come As You Are, the book by Emily, I think it's Nasaki, Dr. Jennifer Finlayson Fife, her book That We Might Have Joy is an incredible LDS resource. I love that one. There's lots of others. So start with honing in on what parts of this field interest you, and then, see, can I do this without credentials? Do I need the credentials? Do I feel like it'd be beneficial to me as a person to just have them because I want to learn more? Or is the people that I'm trying to cater to, do I need to have more credibility to them? And so therefore it would be beneficial for me. You kind of have to weigh all of that. I can't decide that for you. But just know if you're going to be looking up programs and things, there are a lot of online options, but typically they're under the humanities, the gender studies type of label. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. I know, I rambled a lot, but that's what you get with me. If you don't like it, sorry, there's a lot of other amazing psychologists out there that you can go and listen to. But if you like my style, I have episodes that come out weekly, me talking like this, and then I have my Q&A episodes. So go check out all my stuff. And then I also have curriculum that I'm currently in the process of making like tons more. But if you purchase it now, like, you'll have access to everything that I upload. So that's available on Patreon, my full learning library. I have some things that are free and available on Patreon, and on YouTube, stuff about like lube or the study of sexuality or sexology, sorry. That's free and available for everyone. My history of masturbation, I'm going to make that one public so anyone can watch that. But then female sexual dysfunction, techniques, all of that stuff, that's going to be paid for on my Patreon. So you can purchase that, and hopefully that can help you in spreading the good word of human sexuality. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and I really hope you pursue a career in this field because it is the best. It's full of the most amazing, creative, like out there humans, and it's so fun. Just incredible. Very, very loving, accepting space, and there is lots of room for religious people in this space, and I would love to see so many more than there are currently. I mean, there's some amazing people coming out of BYU, of different states as well, and worldwide, that are religious, that not just LDS, but some incredible Muslim sexologists that I follow, Jewish as well. Like, just really cool to have that intersection of spirituality and sexuality, because we add a lot to this field. Never forget that. The perspective that you bring is going to be very different. And that was something that I loved about my program, that I was, not only an American in Australia, so I had the American perspective, but I'm this American LDS member that, the only like actively religious person in my group of my cohort, and being able to share my perspective on celibacy that greatly differed from everyone else in my class, and getting to share my perspective on masturbation and pornography, and taking from others' perspectives as well. Like, it was great. It added so much to who I am as a person, how I think and interact with this field. So I'm really grateful for the education that I pursued, and I love hearing that anyone else wants to do this as well, because the more the merrier. There is so much room. It is not too crowded. Please come in. The water's fine. Okay, that's it from me. Bye.